Welcome to the Beyond Physio podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community. On today's podcast, we talk with our sponsored athlete, Matt Schuster. This is his second appearance. Matt recently qualified for the Kona Ironman World Championships, which is happening later this year. And we're really excited to see his progress and how he has been able to get through all of his races using our physio recovery system at Next Level, which has helped to keep him healthy, strong, and fast for this entire year. So we are going to be watching and waiting to see how the results come out. On the episode, we also discuss a follow-up to his company, Adra Labs, which is a nutrition bar company that really prides itself in making sure that the quality of protein that they use is at its very best so that you can get the best absorption for all of your training and racing needs. Finally, we talk about how he balances entrepreneurship, racing, training, and family. So if you are a busy athlete out there, and I know many of you who listen to this podcast are, I do hope you'll find this episode both interesting and helpful for how you can maintain both a healthy family life and also get all of your training in. Matt, it's so great to connect with you again. And as our latest, maybe one of our greatest, sponsored Next Level athletes, you've been killing it this triathlon season. And since the last time you and I spoke, you've had so many achievements. One of them I really want to talk about today, which is, well, we've got Adra Labs. You got your bar going, and that business is awesome.
Yeah.
By the way, the bars are great. I am a fan, so thank you so much for bringing these in.
Yeah, no problem.
Second thing is, which is why we're here today, is talking about the road to Kona. Now, from my understanding from in the world of triathlon, having raced in the past, getting to Kona is quite the achievement. Can we talk about what it was, your training was like to get there, and just walk us through that season? Give us a sort of top level view of getting to Kona.
Yeah, it was super easy and
Yeah.
it didn't take that much work.
Wow, amazing. So glad we sponsored you.
No, it's been a journey, man. So when I started, I guess call it my triathlon career back in 2020, it was the end of 2020, beginning of 21. This was one of the goals I wrote down on the whiteboard. So
It was.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So you're saying that every day, basically.
And you set a goal and you're like, oh yeah, just go do that. And
Very simple. You're right.
And very quickly I learned, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought. So the context is that to race in the Ironman World Championship, number one, you have to, in reality, finish within the top, call it 5. And depending on how many slots, it could be the top 3, it could be the top 7.
Yeah.
But say top 5, you have a shot of your age group at a full distance Ironman. And that gives you a qualification for whatever the sanctioned championship race is for that time frame.
Yeah.
With recent developments, the race is split, so they have every other year the men and women either race in France, in Nice, or in Hawaii. And I'd actually argue that the Nice course is probably a little bit more challenging and more fun. But there's the Kona course is obviously very iconic.
Of course,
so
yes.
so qualifying then becomes this: where do you want to place your bets? Which races within North America are actually set to qualify for which championship race? And that's just getting an at bat and then getting to the point where you are fit enough and strong enough and fast enough. That's the hard work, right? So It's like a lot of things need to line up, a lot of scheduling, a lot of choosing the right races. And this was kind of a exciting year because it was my 4th attempt. So I've started 4 Ironmans. I finished 3. I've started 4, and I still bet that had I finished the 3rd one, I probably would have. I was on pace to do well, and unfortunately, life had other plans.
Got it. So now it sounds then, when you're planning for a goal like this, that you have to really be strategic about where you're going to race to make sure you can get the qualifying time that you need.
It's really about choosing and aligning your strengths with your training availability and You can only plan so much. A lot of it is really dependent upon who shows up at the race that day.
I remember that.
Um,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I mean, for me, it was not just like, oh, let's go do it. Every year was started a baseline. My first attempt was actually Lake Placid back in 22, and I finished. I can't remember. I think it was either ninth or 11th in the age group,
Yeah.
and rolled down. The slots rolled down to I think eighth. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was eighth because I missed it by 3.
Ah,
Which there's
yeah.
also the if you didn't qualify, you don't want to get the passed up opportunity, but Kona slots rarely do get passed up.
Yeah.
But every year was just okay, how do we get a little bit better? How do we get a little bit better? How do we get a little bit faster? And it's really just about staying committed to the goal, even when, it doesn't seem like it's coming too easily. And yeah, so finally this year at Lake Placid again, so 2 years
Mm.
later, I was able to secure the slot. I came in fifth with a 5-minute time penalty for Good Samaritan time penalty. I had to stop and actually help someone that
Oh, really?
that crashed on the bike.
Oh, that's nice of you.
And the whole time I was like, oh man, there it goes. But
Maybe your goodwill paid off here.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think there was definitely some give to the universe. The universe gives back.
Yeah. Those 5 minutes were really critical there.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. So it happened about 20 miles into the bike, and then the whole time I'm like, don't override, don't override. And when I looked back at the file, I definitely overrode the next hour. I don't think it hurt me too bad,
Yeah.
but I was, probably a good 20 to 30 watts over where I should have been
Mm,
for that time frame.
got it. So Matt, so then year over year, as you were trying to qualify, did you make sort of like readjust your training, recalibrate year to year because you saw certain gaps in your training or in how you raced? How did that change over the years as you tried to qualify?
I laugh because as the athlete, every time I would have a race, depending if it was a good or a bad result, I would usually send a full like synopsis and breakdown to my coach of like, here's everything that went right, here's everything that went wrong, here's everything we need to improve. We need to start adding in high speed intervals and this and that and that. And he's really good about being able to showcase a longer perspective of like, yeah, this doesn't happen over. So the answer
Imagine
is
that.
pretty much nothing changed. It
That's right.
was just a lot of the consistency of the mundanity of excellence of
Yeah.
just keep doing what you're doing. It's time on your legs, time on the bike, time in the water, and it's time training. And yeah, there's no secret.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of being patient.
So glad you said that because I think we are certainly in a world where people want fast results and they're willing to do whatever they can to get there. But there's something about the discipline of consistency that I think sometimes gets lacked or sometimes gets forgotten. And you've certainly demonstrated that. I think some people actually give up after the first 2 times. I try twice, I forget it. But you stuck with it and maintain that discipline year over year, being coached over that time. And it's not easy to be training for races of this nature. What do you think it is
Yeah.
that continues to drive you to stick with the program and stay consistent, the boring road riding, running, swimming, that sort of thing?
There's so a good friend of mine, and actually one of the athletes that I've gotten to know. We work with him at Adra.
Hmm.
His name is Mark Cerrone. He has these rules that he
I
created.
like
I think I forget. I think they're up to like 30 something, but he calls them Cerrone's rules.
Cerrone's rules.
And the number one rule is you have to love training. It's like this whole thing doesn't work. You have to love training and the pursuit of your potential.
Yeah.
And if you don't, all bets are off. Like nothing's gonna happen. And for me, I came into this later in life, but it struck a chord super deep of like just continuing to pursue excellence in a specific area like endurance fitness. Like it rings my bell.
Mm.
It's what gets me up.
Yeah.
I've yet to dread a workout. I've
Mm.
yet to wake up and be like, oh, I have to do this.
Wow.
I got close. The big Ironman builds, I mean, they start to.
Oh yeah.
One of my friends said that You did an Ironman build, right? When you look at your bike and you're like, ugh, I have to get on that again. I have not gotten there,
Yeah.
but I have had those moments where I was like, oof,
Yeah.
how am I going to do this big brick?
Yeah.
But then you get there and you're like, oh, I get to plan the bottles, I get to plan the course, I get to do
Right.
this, I get to surprise. Like even this morning, like I had the last big long run, and it was after a big ride yesterday,
Yeah.
and I was like, my legs felt awful. I'm like, how am I gonna do this? And you
gosh.
just, all right, I'll get going, and it usually takes me 5 miles to shake it out, and we'll see how we feel by mile 5, and then I completely surprised myself. It was a 20-mile run with 8 warm up, and then a 10-mile race pace block,
Wow.
and then 2-mile cool down. And the whole time in my head, I'm just thinking about, oh my God, 10 miles at race pace right now feels awful. But as soon as we got to the interval start, it was like, oh, all right, the legs are there. Let's go. So
That's awesome, man.
yeah.
Do you think that, look, what's your favorite kind of workout as far as, do you like bricks, do you prefer, or maybe even your favorite event of the three?
I don't necessarily have a favorite. I think I love I love the mix. So like my favorite day is the ones where we get to do 3, maybe even 4 workouts in a day.
Mhm.
And with time commitments, that gets a little bit tough.
Very.
I actually just had a big training camp last week.
Oh, cool. Where?
We went up to the Catskills.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so my family, my in-laws own a house up there.
Nice.
So we got a couple guys. So the guy Mark that I mentioned,
Yeah.
another incredible athlete that I've been friends with for a while, Ryan Davis,
Mhm.
and we went and we just did a lot of training.
Oh.
Kind of live the monk lifestyle,
Yeah.
pretend pro, even though Mark actually is a pro.
Oh, nice.
And it was both exciting and humbling.
Tell me, because obviously I see the pro times. What's it like training with someone that level?
So that's the funny thing, is that it's not like the lifestyle, the effort, the experience, it's not drastically different. They're working just as hard as you are. They're just going a little bit faster, or in some cases a lot of bit faster. But so like we did all the same training for the week. What I found was just depending on the discipline, I'm a stronger runner than I'm a cyclist or a swimmer. The run workouts was able to just hang. The bike workouts, ooh, I got dropped. We had one ride. It was a 100-mile ride with 9,000 feet of climbing, and the first half we were all together, and then what we did was we made 2 50-mile loops that ended back at the house. So we'd stop at the house, refill, and go. And we were coming to the end, and then right at the last climb up to the house, I don't know what happened. It just cracked. All of a sudden, my legs were like, no more.
Oh, man.
We got to the house, and then I looked at them, and they're like, okay, halfway. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to keep going. And what it was is that like the higher end efforts, like everyone's working hard.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a big climb, like you're going to push, everyone's pushing. It's more that their floors are much higher. So it's like after you get over, you get onto the flat, I would drop down to here. They only drop down to here.
Wow.
So then I'm working extra hard
Huge.
to stay with them on the easy parts. And then it just made me rethink, like, ooh, I'm not training hard enough. I got to work a little harder.
Yeah. But they've also been doing it for a lot longer than you.
They've,
right?
yeah,
so
that's
they
the
have
big
more
thing.
total volume.
So Mark's this is actually his second round as a pro athlete. So he was a pro in the short course draft legal.
Yeah.
So he's been training for almost 20 years. And now he's re-gotten his pro card, so he races the long distance.
Oh, nice.
And then the guy Ryan that we're training with, he's on his way. He's definitely right on that bubble, on the cusp of crossing into that professional ranks.
Yeah.
And insanely good swimmer. Like it's very frustrating because he did not grow up swimming.
No.
So he learned it.
Really? That's rare.
5 or 6 years ago, and he I think he did like a 52-minute Ironman swim or something like that.
No,
and
he didn't.
And then so we got in the pool, and he's just got these long arms, and he just grabs all the water and just. Oh my God. Oh, I don't like you.
I think that's the one event where I get super jealous and envious of people with a swimming background, or just people who do better than I am.
Yeah,
I can.
yeah.
So
there's a couple. There's a handful of folk that just I don't know what it is. They just naturally take to the water, and then you're just like, ooh, I had to work really hard just to get to like kind of close to you, and you just naturally can do it. Like,
Oh my God,
I
get
don't
out of
know.
here. Cool. What are you riding right now as far as your bike goes?
Like what kind of
Yeah.
bike? So I have a Canyon Speed Max.
Nice.
It's actually it's getting up there. I bought it back in 21,
Yeah.
and the actual bike itself is great, but there's been so much advancements in the utility of the bikes,
Yeah.
like the front end setup for the cockpit to get more aero or to get more storage or get more hydration.
Yeah.
So it might be time. I might be looking. Don't tell my wife.
She
Yeah,
won't hear. She won't
we
watch the podcast. So don't worry.
we might be looking at a new bike hopefully in the next year or two, but
Nice. Oh my God.
I don't know which one, but
Yeah. We'll discuss that after.
yeah.
So now that you've been, now I would say you're a seasoned triathlete, during the weeks leading up to a big race like this, what's going through your mind? What's your training like at that point? Do you start your taper sooner because of the distance? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so for 70.3 or shorter, usually we'll do, well, let me back up. For an A race, obviously we're organizing the training schedule around that specific race or those few specific races. So an important race, you usually taper a little bit longer. I have found over the years that I actually respond better to a bit of a shorter taper.
Oh, even for a longer race.
Even for a longer race,
Uh,
yeah. Or maybe not shorter, but like a less steep.
yeah.
So, like for example, for Kona, it's probably only about a 25% drop
Hmm.
from the peak week this week to
Yeah.
next week.
Yeah.
And then it's race week.
Yeah.
And then race week comes down quite a bit,
Right.
obviously. I've done other tapers where you start dropping 3 weeks out a little bit, and then 2 weeks out, it's like a 50% drop.
Hmm.
And then you kind of wake the body back up.
Yeah.
For some reason, whenever I let the body go down, I get sick.
Really?
Yeah.
So
And
you're
it's
better
just,
holding attention almost at a high level before you go through the race then.
I don't know if what the physiology is that's
Yeah.
happening. I just recognized in the races we did, like for Placid, we kept it going a little bit longer and the body held up
Wow.
and it was good. So yeah, so for Kona, we peaked out last week at
Yeah.
training camp. We did like 2 or 3 light days this week and then back into like full bore.
Yeah.
So like the longest ride was yesterday
Uh,
and then big run today, obviously.
yeah.
And then going into next week, the taper doesn't really start until the weekend when the long rides would have come.
Yeah.
So instead of doing 5 hours on the bike, we're doing like 2.5.
Oh, okay.
But the midweek stuff is all essentially the same level.
Oh, I see.
So
That's crazy. So it's funny that you've gone through this sort of trial and error and you found for yourself that what's typically the case for other athletes hasn't worked for you in the same way.
I don't know if it doesn't work. I'm definitely doing a trade-off of freshness, like, rather than shedding as much fatigue as possible.
Yeah.
Because what the issue was, and I ran into this in Arizona
Yeah.
last year, was we started the taper 2 weeks out, and I was pushing real hard.
Yeah.
My immune system was at an all-time low, and then just came down,
Wow.
and then I just got super sick, and I was sick all the way up until the night before the race,
No way.
during the race, and
That must be really hard.
it was the trade-off of I'd rather be a little less fresh but healthy
Yeah.
than fully fresh and just
Oops.
ill.
Oh my God.
And what we're putting our bodies through is extreme.
Very.
So
Yeah.
so the taper this time around is a little bit lighter. And then next week the race week is all acclimation to the environment.
Oh.
So it's like, okay, we're gonna see how hot it is. We're gonna do a bunch of ocean swims. We're
Oh,
gonna
man. Yeah.
really get used to the conditions out there.
Yeah.
As much as you can in like 4 days.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of heat training during the summer?
Yeah, I got a bunch, but the only issue with like heat acclimatization is it's very temporary, short term.
Yeah.
So all that heat training I did, that was gone
already.
months ago. So
Yeah.
I've been doing a protocol the last 4 days, which is really like trying to put a Band-Aid on a gash. But I'll do like 30 minutes of short-term dehydration whether it's jumping in the sauna
Mhm.
or I made myself a little heat chamber in the attic.
Oh, nice. Wow.
And yeah, I have that tonight, which I'm really not
Oh
looking
my
forward
God.
to.
Yeah. What was the heat chamber? Is it like the sauna, like a wet sauna or something? Or
Oh no, it's way less sophisticated than that.
oh, is it?
It looks like a little Dexter room
Oh,
too.
is it?
It's like painter's plastic,
Yeah, yeah,
and I just hang it like
yeah.
curtains around the bike trainer,
That
and
is
then I put a space
so.
heater inside of it,
Oh my God.
and then I just get on the bike so I can
Let's
get the
go.
little pocket area up to
Yeah.
about 90,
Wow.
and then I start riding, and I can get the humidity up just from the sweat.
Yeah.
Though somebody said like put a humidifier in there, and that might
Oh yeah.
beef up the humidity,
That
but.
sounds awful.
But yeah, I'll go do, if I can't get to the sauna, I'll go do that for like 50 minutes, 45,
Yeah.
50 minutes, and you're just drenched.
Sounds
And you can't
amazing.
drink, so
Wow.
you literally just have to like sweat and just get a
Endure that.
little tiny bit.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of an impact it's going to have, but at
Yeah.
least we're doing something
Yeah.
as opposed to
That's right.
just training in the cold and
Wow.
then
Exactly.
going out.
Oh my God, that's tough, man. So then let's go into like nutrition and stuff because I think it's a weak point for a lot more triathletes than I and it's a big struggle. It's always the question that when I was racing more competitively in the past, it was a question that everyone always asked, like, what do you drink for nutrition? And obviously, of course, they asked me the day before a race. I'm like, it's too late now, dude.
Are you talking about
So
race nutrition or like daily
a
nutrition?
race day nutrition or
Oh,
race
race day
nutrition,
nutrition. Yeah,
exactly. We'll go
yeah.
into daily in a second too. But talk about like what you under the last race, what you had, what worked for
Yeah.
you,
Oh, I
obviously.
actually had, it's been funny. So having worked for Power Bar
Yeah,
before, I was only using Power Bar products. And for me, it was all about how many grams of carbs per hour you could get. It's like
right.
just cram it in. And like the pros are doing
120, yeah,
120,
120 I heard.
140. Some,
Yeah,
I think one of them was doing like 160 per hour. It's
yeah,
like,
that's
oh my
horrible.
God.
I can't even.
And there's this funny misconception of you just immediately like, oh, I should be adding 160 grams per hour. But like, well, your gut is just like a muscle. Like you
Yeah,
can't just go and deadlift 500 pounds. You have to
right,
start with 100 pounds
right,
and work your way up.
right.
So I mean, these athletes have been training their guts for years.
Training the gut.
So I definitely fell into that. So I think one of the races I was doing like 125 grams an hour, but I kept on running into this issue where you get like upper GI issues,
Yeah,
like feel
yeah,
bloated or kind of nauseous or
yeah,
have the burps, and it was really affecting me on the run. Like I'd
yeah.
be okay on the bike, I'd start running, and my whole gut would
Oh
cramp up.
man.
So I thought it was, well, let's try mixing it up with how we dose the carbs throughout the bike. And like,
Hmm.
do we heavy up in the front and then more water? Let's mix up the osmolality. Like maybe you need to just drink more water with the carbs along with
Yeah.
it. And then once the contracts with Power Bar over, it was like, go try everything. From Placid to now, I've tried 7 different products. And the one that I'm going to go with in Kona, the one that seems to work, was Morton.
Hmm.
And the big thing with that one was they use this hydrogel tech, which is basically, that's why it looks like jelly.
Yeah.
Effectively what it's doing is that it's clumping and combining all of the carbohydrate chains
Yeah.
together,
Hmm.
so that instead of having to go one at a time through to the small intestine, they go
Yeah.
in
Oh,
chunks,
interesting.
and then the gastric emptying happens faster.
Oh,
And
wow.
for me, that was my issue,
Yeah.
was everything was just sitting in my stomach.
Yeah.
So we tested it out once. It worked
Hmm.
great. And then it's been about maximizing the limit. So the ride I did yesterday, I bumped it to around 105 grams an hour.
Yeah.
And I was like, that felt like a lot,
Hmm.
like felt full.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like I know it's bad if I'm dreading taking another gel or a sip.
Yeah.
Plus, knowing that where I'm going is going to be so hot that
Oh man.
it's going to be even harder to digest.
Yes,
So
it
we're
is.
probably going to go with like
I
90.
was gonna say like under 100 for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Now, what's your day-to-day nutrition like? Do you have a difference when you're in season versus out of season, Matt?
Yeah. So day to day, it really is about throttling caloric intake with training load.
Yeah.
One of the things that is the hardest is obviously throttling down.
Yeah.
When you're getting into a build, tend to just eat to hunger.
Yeah.
Like I don't count, I use meal tracking apps or anything like that, but I use hunger cues. And then once after a race or even going into I'm going into taper now, so the volume's going to come down.
Mm-hmm.
The hunger cues are still there. So you have to consciously, I like to eliminate based on meals versus quantities. So all my meals stay the same size. I'll just, if I know I'm having a big week, I'll add an extra snack or an extra dinner. I call it my second dinner. So you have dinner at like 4:35 and then you have another one at like 6:37.
Right.
And then once you start to dial it down, you just remove the
last
second
one.
dinner.
Yeah.
And I have noticed the biggest difference when the quality of the food is better. So cutting out the sugary snacks, not to say that they're bad, but I remember I went a day where I was working an event and I was training at the same time, and the only thing available was like granola bars and things from like the convenience store. And I probably ate the same quantity of food, but the quality was so low. And the next day I just felt so bad.
Wow.
And then after that, I went back and it's like chicken, rice, broccoli,
Yeah.
eggs in the morning. And again, the volume was the same, but you just feel so substantially better. And then one of the things that I've noticed the biggest difference this year, because I'm trying to remember, we did our podcast in the summer, right?
Yeah. But
It
was that a
was
year ago? No, it was actually earlier this
it was
year.
earlier this
Yeah.
year, yeah. So when we started Adra, we made our first like trial of bars back in January. And not only am I one of the founders, but I'm a customer too.
Imagine
So
that.
I've been eating about 2 or 3 of them a day.
Yeah.
So basically what I do is I swap out the post-workout protein shake for one, and then I'll swap out snacks for one. And that's it. Like I haven't changed anything else in the diet. Everything else is pretty much the same. And then I noticed after the race in June, and then especially after Placid, that it's not necessarily this massive like, oh, I feel stronger, or oh, it was more of just like, oh, it didn't really take me as long to get back in or to bounce back after the race.
Oh.
Like I did the Western Mass 70.3.
Yeah.
And normally after 70.3, not until the weekend after am I feeling back to normal.
Yeah.
I jumped into a big group ride that Wednesday and my legs were fine.
Wow.
And it's still pushed it, had a PR that day, so it wasn't like I was under racing.
Yeah.
And then same thing with Placid, like full Ironman destroys you.
Yeah.
And systemically, like the central fatigue was there,
Yeah.
but like muscularly, my legs were not as bad 3, 4, 5 days after.
Yeah.
And it's just more of the fact of you're filling your body with more high quality protein.
Yeah.
On a more consistent basis. And our whole premise behind the bar was if you can have a higher quality protein component by enhancing some of the different amino acids within it, you can get a whole lot more from a performance perspective, right?
Yeah.
So these bars, they have 17, 18 grams of protein, but we boosted each one with double the leucine levels, which is the key branch chain amino acid for recovery. And that's really the most important element to get. You can't just have it on its own. Like if you just take leucine powder, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
You do have to have a background of other amino acids. But what we're learning is that you don't necessarily have to have 30, 40, 50 grams of protein to get the same benefit. You have a lower total, but boost the one that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one that we found, and this kind of we stumbled upon, which was the different protein sources. If you're getting it from whey, or if you're looking at vegan options, the presence of different amino acids, specifically leucine, each one is so different. So like, for example, soy protein is one of the worst in terms of its amino acid profile. We've seen that if you have a serving of protein with at least 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine, that's the sweet spot. Soy is, most of those bars are 20 gram protein bars, and that'll give you maybe a gram, maybe 1.2.
Yeah.
So you're only half of what you need.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like very popular bars out there. I won't name bars, but likely ones that most people are eating right now
They're low in leucine.
that are just, they're not getting the full benefit. Like they're getting some, they're eating, it's protein, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. They could be getting a lot more gains if they were using a higher quality protein source.
That's really interesting. So then you would even say among the whey protein powders that looking for leucine, the amount of leucine in that profile for protein or what the ingredients are would be helpful to make sure that you're getting enough of the right kind of protein in.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a science degree and go in and be reading, like sometimes they'll list the amino
Oh,
acids.
yeah.
You don't have to go that far. It's knowing kind of the basics of the gold standard would be whey protein's got the highest
Mhm.
concentration individually. It has about a gram of leucine for every 10 grams of protein.
Oh, nice.
So, but then as you move down to milk protein,
Mhm.
casein,
Casein.
and then basically dairy protein is 3 ingredients. It's milk,
Mhm.
which is a combination of casein and whey.
Right.
And whey is obviously the highest concentration of amino acids, casein's the lowest. Milk is the blend of the two.
Right.
The vegan proteins like pea and brown rice, they're good, but again, vegan proteins naturally are going to have less naturally occurring leucine.
Right.
Collagen protein, it is the topic du jour lately.
Yes, it is.
It is incredibly low in leucine content.
Yeah.
It is in many cases the lowest quality protein you can
Yeah.
get, but there's a lot of positive association to collagen peptides,
Of course,
and
yeah.
like your hair, your skin, your
Yeah.
nails. But for us, what we're very concerned with is we need to repair and remodel endurance protein. So we need mitochondria development, capillary development, and obviously muscle as well. And leucine content is the most important ingredient to stimulating that. So collagen is very, very low on the list.
So collagen for other things, but for what we need as endurance athletes, we got to make sure that the leucine content is sufficient for what we need to recover and rebuild.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny. So a lot of times we'll talk about as athletes this idea of, I won't get into the whole diatribe about fitness comes from recovery versus training. Like training is a stimulus, but we also talk a lot about absorbing the training, right?
Yeah.
Like we go out, we do a session, and we want to absorb that. What we mean by that is we want the body, that stress on the body, to then trigger all the changes.
Yeah.
And what I've learned through starting this company and digging deeper into that is most of that is protein replacement, right? Your whole body is made of different proteins. Like your muscle proteins fully replace within around 90 days. So like if you looked at your arm, if you looked at it around 2 to 3 months later, technically that's a completely different arm. Every protein in there has been wiped out and replaced with a new one at some point. So if that's the whole system, absorption of training means giving the body what it needs to replace and replenish all of those proteins in your body so that you can remodel them into stronger ones and better fit to do what you're trying to ask them to do.
Right. So then that's why the nutrition part is so key in fast tracking that or making it a sustainable process over time.
Yeah, or we look at it as optimizing it, right?
Optimizing, yeah.
I will say this, like I said earlier, there's no secret. This is not something that's gonna, you start eating bars and all of a sudden you're
Like-
start PRing. Like
Right.
this is something that's,
Well, forget I don't want the bars then.
no, it's like anything in life. You implement small changes,
Yeah.
and what this is doing is maximizing the return over a period of time, right? You start, even if it wasn't these bars, just start eating proper protein intakes overall over a 3 to 6 month period. You're gonna feel better. You're gonna do better. You're gonna recover faster. The premise behind this is it's a more efficient bar or supplement to add into a total intake.
Yeah.
Because we're the new science is pointing towards endurance athletes actually need more protein than most athletes out there, including strength.
Yes.
And the reason being is because we actually burn protein as fuel.
Exactly.
We burn 10 grams an hour.
Yeah.
So we have to replace what we got rid of.
And also-
then, you take in. So I believe the stats around 1.8 grams per kilogram.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
That's for endurance, whereas strength, it's more like 1.5, 1.6.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because and now you also have to add in the variable of age. And the older you and I get, we are already on this track towards losing muscle as it is. So now you add a layer of endurance on top of that. So we need not only a bigger base for the endurance part to recover and to rebuild, but also because of aging related deficits that happen. And so something like getting a bar in there or increasing your quality proteins is that much more important for that. And then if you add another layer of injury, now
Yeah.
we need even more of that. So
Yeah.
the one thing that we always, when we have our discovery visits with our new clients, the one thing we say is that if you remember nothing from this educational session, just remember you got to get more protein in and make
Yeah.
sure it's higher quality
Yeah.
because that's going to help you. Because a lot of our guys are ultra runners and stuff like that and gals, so it's really about like, listen, you need a base to recover, and you're not even getting the right amount in. And as you probably know, before you went on this journey too, people tend to overestimate how much protein they take in. So, oh yeah, I have an egg at here. I'm like, so then we do the calculation. So you get about 30 grams a day. They're like, it's funny. It's
Yeah.
eye opening for a lot of people.
It is. I mean, it's been funny. Half of this business has been education
Yeah,
because we could get into like you need a total amount of protein, but then now we're talking about quality. It's like, well, actually, you need a concentration of amino acids. So depending on your protein, you may need 30 grams. You may need. So I think the math
yeah.
was like if you want to get the same quality of protein, you can get 30 grams of whey protein or 100 grams of collagen protein, and it's that big of a
Wow,
swing.
it's crazy.
But you're 100% right. I think the one point around age that I'm clinging on to is that yes, as you age, you definitely sarcopenia is something that
Yes.
does come into play. The good news is that if you are an athlete,
Yeah.
that tends to be less of an
Yes.
issue as you get older. So if you
100%.
stay fit and continue to move and exercise, that can stave it off. But your your sensitivity to leucine actually goes up as you get older.
Oh,
So
that's
it
interesting. I
actually is
didn't know
more
that.
beneficial to get a higher or sorry, it goes down as you get older. So you need more
Seen.
leucine to trigger that muscle protein synthesis
Yeah.
as you age. When you're younger, like 20, 18, 20, maybe 25, leucine's not as important, right?
Hmm.
Your body's going to, protein's in, we're going to move it. But as you age, you actually need a stronger trigger.
Mm.
So getting that 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine with your serving is even more important as you get older. So tell all your clients.
Yes, and if you're listening to this podcast, you will get that information,
Yep.
which is awesome. So, Matt, as far as like racing goes, have you found like the ideal weight for yourself as far as race weight goes, or does that even factor into your training when you think about race day?
It's gone in and out. I used to focus on it a lot,
Hmm.
especially when I first started. Then I moved completely away from it and just with the volume of training that we're doing and eating to hunger cues, it was just like whatever it is on race day. And then they're definitely, depending on the course and depending on the race and certain instances, there is a benefit to certain body composition levels. Right now, my weight doesn't fluctuate too much, maybe like 4 or 5 pounds in either direction.
Yeah.
But it is something that, depending on if it was, say, like a really hilly course, if we were doing Nice, that would be one where we may look to weight optimize a little bit
Yeah.
because the amount of boosting that watts per kg on a course like that is going to have a pretty profound impact.
Yeah.
Kona is a little bit different. It's flat. It's
Oh, it
more about
is.
watts per CDA, right?
Ah,
Because you're going straight and flat into
yeah.
the wind.
Yes.
So the smaller and tighter you can get, and it's actually there's a benefit to being a bit stronger and potentially even having a little bit more muscle mass because you can just push higher
Yes, that's
watts.
right. Yeah,
As
makes
long as
sense.
you can get small and tight
Yeah,
and doesn't impact that. So
that's so curious.
yeah, I think they say like it's around 3 or 4% grade
Hmm.
that's usually the crossover where the watts per kg advantage comes into play.
Ah,
Like 2 or 3%, it's like you can muscle over, like
yeah.
powers can overcome, but above 3, maybe even 4%, you tend to see the lighter cyclists,
I'll
they get
take
the
off.
advantage and can go past
Yeah.
up the hill.
Yeah.
So
So now you started Adra, and as a business owner myself, I know that time is very scarce. Okay.
yeah.
You started this business, obviously going very well. I think you said you are now the nutrition choice for Ironman. Tell me that again.
I don't. So we were able to secure position as the the recovery bar for Ironman New York 70.3. So the race that happened in Long Island.
Yes.
So we were at the expo sampling out, and then we were in the post-athlete food. So you
That's so cool.
finish the race, you'd get a protein bar, which is
It's huge.
obviously something that you need right then and there.
Yeah.
And it was cool because I've done a bunch of races, and post-race food really can be hit or miss.
Yeah, it can.
I've been to ones where they give out salads, and I'm like, that's not what I want right now. But I've never been to one where it had like a very high quality like protein product, whether it was a drink or a bar or shake or whatever. So it was cool, and the athletes really appreciated it, and it was fun for us. We only launched the company, officially launched a little over a month ago.
That's amazing, man.
And everyone's like, what is this? I've never heard of this. I'm like, that's because we didn't exist a month ago.
I'm so excited for you because I love obviously meeting other entrepreneurs and seeing these opportunities come up. You're like, oh my gosh, it's crazy, right? Tell me how you're balancing, and obviously you're still married, and you have
Still
kids.
married. Yeah, I guess that means I'm not training hard.
Yeah, exactly. As they say. So you got this company that's going to be amazing and is amazing. And by the way, my favorite is the apple pie.
Oh yeah,
I
pie
love
is,
that one.
That's the
Oh
top.
my God, it's an amazing with coffee, by the way. So you got this bar company going, you got your training going, you're going to championships very soon. How are you managing your time with family, training, and business?
I think managing is an overstatement. I think surviving would be the right. Well, it is. It does feel, and it does seem that there's a lot happening all at once, and when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
I didn't plan. So when I was setting my goals for this season, I knew that we were launching Adra. We didn't have a set time. We had a rough idea of it's probably going to happen over the summer at some point. I hadn't qualified for Kona. I didn't know if Kona was going to happen. In my head, if it didn't happen, I was going to cut back and do some shorter distance stuff so that I could keep the volume down. But obviously that didn't happen. So the first answer is having a superhero as a wife who has just been fully supportive, fully on board from the beginning. So when all the businesses I've started, she's been a part of. With Adra, she's been helping out behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's only so much time in the day, so she's picking up a lot of the slack at home.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I said I wanted to do this, but I can't the kids still have to go to school. So it means that I have to get out of bed a little earlier. So if it means I'm up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, so I can get a workout in before. I think the big thing is about being strategic and placing and blocking training times throughout the day.
Yeah.
So I'll always try to, if I have a swim, I try to be in the water by 6 o'clock so I can be done in time to get home when the kids get up and get into school.
Yeah.
And then I'll drop them off and then leave for potentially a second workout, shorter. Yeah. If it's longer, then Rach and I will tag team and say, like, I need this morning because I've got a big bike ride and I'm going to try and get it done before 9 o'clock. Obviously, when workouts get really long, then it's just, I need the day. Like yesterday, it was a 6, I think all in, it was just over a 6-hour break.
Yeah.
And just over 6. But I was doing it down in Long Island. Yeah. Because I wanted the Jones Beach Ocean Parkway Causeway to like simulate the wind and all that. So it was an hour there and an hour and a half back. So I left the house at like 6 a.m. and got back at like 4:30. Oh man. And so with stuff like that, you have to plan. It's like, hey, I'm going to need this day. So then Sunday we'll trade off and I'll be, though I don't know if that really works. But and then she actually just went back to work. So she's got more obligations. So there's weeks where like I have the kids full on and then she has the kids. But it doesn't work unless you have shared interest, right? Like she's fully invested in everything we're trying to do.
It's amazing. And
she's a saint that she puts up with all the craziness that comes along with this, man.
I love it. So, as a fellow entrepreneur, I the same. I tell my wife that she's like the COO of our family.
COO.
Yeah, she's like the chief operating officer.
You're dreaming, man. She's the boss.
No, he's just... Well, you're probably right. Actually,
Rach is the CEO. I come to her with projects. I think I told you the story when I first pitched her, right?
oh yes.
Yeah, I pitched her for funding.
God, it's so
And
funny.
it was funding of time and money
Oh my God.
and buy-in. No, she is by far the CEO,
Yeah.
and I'm like the crazy head of sales is just trying to do too many things at once.
That's funny. And I've told her many times that when I can't do what I do on a day-to-day basis, managing through different offices and trying to get one going in North Carolina to the extent that I do, without her being able to be like the foundation for our house.
Hmm.
So to your point, it's like I can't do what I do without my wife fully supporting what I do as well. So we both have good wives, very good wives, very great wives.
Very lucky, very
Very
lucky.
lucky. So that's awesome. So basically, it's a partnership in many different ways.
Partnership.
And that's what enables you to do what you do best. It enables you to also maintain a household, which is great, and also enjoy life, it sounds like, too, from all the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, like I said, the whole family gets into it and excited. So I wouldn't call them racecations, but they're excited to go to Placid. They are super excited to go to Hawaii.
Oh my God.
And which it's part of the experience.
Yeah.
Some people want to live like the pro monk life where you just kind of go on your own, go to your thing, you can focus. I've tried a couple of races like that, and it is not rewarding whatsoever. I remember I went to Milwaukee last year by myself.
Yeah.
And like I had a couple other friends that were racing, but you cross that finish line and there's no one there, and you're just like,
Oh, that's it.
oh man,
I guess I'm
didn't
going
win any
home.
money or didn't not writing home.
Oh
So
man, it's
and
deflating.
then versus when you finish Placid, you walk across and like your kids are there,
Yeah.
Rach is there, my parents, and you're just like, oh, this is awesome.
Oh, it's all
Super
good.
rewarding.
Matt, it was great catching up with you again, and I love being a part of your journey too, both in business but also as a sponsored athlete for Next Level.
Yeah, I mean, it's been incredible. Like I feel like I've cheating a little bit because we started working together at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And basically what I've been doing is I come in once a week and kind of regardless
Yeah.
of what's happening. And what's in the beginning, it was a lot of just, oh, let's try this. Let's experience this. Let's try some dry needling. Let's try some shockwave therapy. But then, especially as the year goes long and the build gets bigger, it's been incredible from a preventative perspective. Like I can almost guarantee you I've avoided multiple injuries. Like even just this week, we had that big training block in the training camp. And then I had a run on Thursday morning. I had my session here with Alex on Thursday afternoon and felt fine. Wasn't too banged up. And I started my run and all of a sudden my entire back seized up, the whole left side.
Really?
Yeah. From
Out of the blue.
the shoulder blade all
Yeah.
the way down. And I was just like, ooh, that feels weird. So I just kept going, of course, kept running.
Of course.
And I was like, maybe I'll loosen up. And then it kind of like kept getting tighter and tighter. So when I came in, a quick evaluation, and Alex was like, oh yeah, this is all locked up.
Mhm.
So first step was loosen up the back. And then the second step was, where's the source?
Yeah.
And where it was coming from was my glute medius on
Yeah.
my left side,
Yeah.
down to my hip, which was overworked from the
Yeah.
training camp.
Of course.
And then I was, especially on the bike, compensating and holding my back too tight, which then
Locked
tightened
everything
up.
up. Yeah.
So he's able to release the back and then do some work on the glute medius to kind of relax that and help that heal a little bit more. And was able to turn around 2 days later and do 2 more big days of training, and back is fine.
Wow.
Legs are fine. And there's been a handful of times where it's happened. And like I said, I wasn't coming in planning on anything. I just woke up that morning, went for a run. I was like, oh, that's off. And I was like, hey, my back hurts a little bit. And he was like, we need to address this now. And he used a whole combo. He used dry needling to kind of, I call it the magic points, but you could tell because he'll get the spot with the needle and all of a sudden the muscle just goes,
Oh, yeah.
and then it just relaxes.
Yeah.
And then he did some stim within the needles down the
Oh,
back.
yeah. Love that one.
And then we just did some mobility work to
Yeah.
keep things loose. And it's amazing to be able to kind of get ahead of that and, and address that early on.
It's funny, I know one of our athletes down in North Carolina who was training for his second marathon, battling an Achilles issue. What he had said was like, I don't, and he was actually also on this weekly recovery. It's very similar to you. And it was, Dr. Jerry, I don't know how I would have gotten to this marathon had I not had you guys, even if nothing was going wrong per se, just working on a couple of things to
Yeah.
stay ahead of him. He had a couple of things here and there that were like just kind of came up just like you. Got rid of those things using some regenerative stuff, and he was back on track. He was like, man, I don't, this is amazing. So he's gonna have a good race next week. But that actually led me to think like this is why we exist. It's not about getting Matt Schuster back to walking.
Right.
Right. Or
Right.
like
Right.
back to like sitting down. Okay. It's like you got bigger goals than just the average person. And we are not the PT for the average person. We're definitely on this journey to help you stay alongside of you to get you to your A races, to get you
Mm-hmm.
to become that best optimized version of yourself.
Yeah. I've even like a couple of friends of mine have started coming in
Oh,
because
nice.
they see they're like, you keep going to PT, but why? I'm like, I feel like calling it PT is wrong. I was like, it's not like it is,
Yeah.
but really what it is it's all proactive preventative work.
Yeah.
It's natural. When you want to push your body's gonna sometimes
Revolt.
react negatively. And if you can treat that stuff as it comes before it
Yeah.
becomes an issue, you can avoid a lot of overcompensation and imbalance issues down the road because
Yeah.
they're just favoring something that hurts.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
And I'm so glad you said that because I think that for a long time, and to your point, I don't think we're just PT, but a lot of people think, oh, I only go to PT when I'm injured.
right.
Whereas we take it, no, we want you to stay out of injury, which is why we have you come in to do the things that are necessary. Obviously, not every time you come in, you're going to have something serious, but if there are little things that, especially as an athlete like yourself at your age, and my age, we got to make sure that we can stay ahead of these things before they become something ugly.
Right, right, right. And it's not even. I'm super excited for. Well, I'm not excited for this race season to be over, but I am excited because uses me as a bit of a guinea pig, and he's got some experiments. He goes deep into the research, learning about new stuff,
Yeah.
and there's some things that he's excited to try. I'm kind of excited to
Oh,
try
nice.
the BFR FTP or BFR VO2 max improvement.
Yes.
So he had me do a couple sessions,
Yeah.
and I really, just because of where we were in the build, I couldn't
Yeah.
commit. But this winter, it's going to be at least 2 sessions a week,
Yes.
potentially 3. And you put the BFR cups on
Yep.
your
Yep.
quads or right up by your hips, restrict the blood flow into your legs, and then do 4 by 4 minute intervals on the bike.
Yes.
And it's super demoralizing because you can't push any
You can't.
power.
You can't.
You're basically
You
just like
really can't.
spinning the pedals, but it feels so hard.
Oh my God, big time.
But supposedly that is a way to shortcut some performance gains and boost
100%.
some VO2 max.
Yeah.
And
We had a
um,
guy, Cat A cyclist, about, I'm going to say 8 years ago. And back then the protocol was 3 times a week, 20-minute with double BFR on a trainer.
yeah,
And basically, and this guy's high level cyclist, he could only go about 5, 10 miles an hour max.
yeah,
Again, no power. He couldn't push anything.
yeah.
Sweaty mess afterwards. He did this for 8 weeks before he went. He actually does a Rocky Mountain race or something like that every year.
Okay.
And he was already in his late 40s. So he was like, let me just see what happens. So we put him on this protocol. He texts us from the Rockies and goes, I've never gone up this fast in my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was wild, man. So like
That's
when
so
you
cool.
told me this, I'm like, I'm excited to see what that's gonna do for you next year.
Yeah.
And it's a legal cheat, I'll just say.
It's a legal
It's a
yeah.
legal cheat,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But yeah,
But
performance and BFR are really massive.
yeah, and I would say the biggest thing would be this is not something to mess with at home.
Yeah,
The BFR cuffs,
yeah,
they are programmed to your specific circulation and
exactly.
to the pressure it needs to be.
Yeah.
I've seen videos of people that just basically put like tourniquets
I
on their legs
know.
and
That's
then
so
go out and ride their
dangerous.
bike, and I'm like, ooh, that doesn't seem too safe.
So glad you said that.
Um,
Yeah, and for the people listening, the grade that we use is medical grade BFR. It's not the kind of ones that you can buy from Amazon and wrap your legs. So do be careful if you see or hear of people doing this because it's probably going to do more damage than good.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, I definitely will not be doing it. outside of here.
Yeah. Cool. Matt, where can people find more about Adra Labs? You guys have a website up and everything?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So it's
Adra.
adralabs.com.
Thank you. I keep saying
Oh, yeah.
Adra.
2Ds, so ADDRA labs.com. And then we also have social accounts. It's just at Adra_labs.
Sweet.
And yeah, we're going to be putting up a lot of the educational content,
Very nice.
especially as I learn, I like to share, but
Yeah.
as we develop it, the whole goal is to make people smarter about protein.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to be putting out some pretty cool stuff over the next couple months.
That's awesome. Matt, thank you so much for, again, carving out some time out of your busy weekend.
No,
I'm,
thank you for everything.
I'm
Yeah.
excited for you to go to your championships, and I'm hoping you're going to crush it, represent well, and
We'll
looking
try.
forward. Maybe we'll do a post-race kind of analysis afterwards.
Yeah,
I'd love to
yeah.
just hear about it.
Yeah,
Sound good?
well, the goal is to finish.
Yeah.
I've had that experience once.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Welcome to the Beyond Physio podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community.